Okay, here we go. We'll call our meeting to order. Parks Commission, April 6th, 2023. And first order, we'll do the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the March minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with 2 corrections. And so I'll give the corrections here. In number 2, the actual approval of the minutes right there, that paragraph is a little confusing because the edit that I did in the last meeting looks like a whole second action. So what this should say is motion by Patrick Cheney to approve February minutes with 1 correction as follows, with second by Christopher Sina, period. Then the correction is, quote, Alder Julia Radifrada moved to approve January minutes, comma, Patrick Cheney second with 1 additional edit. Julia agreed, motion carried, end quote.
Okay.
The second sentence is the edit that I added in, and since it's here, it just needs to be separated. Okay, and then go to page... where is it? This would be page 6. Top of the page says Paul Sutphin. What that doesn't have how he registered, so it should be Paul Sutphin and his address, and then add in registered, opposed, and spoke, and then the rest of that. Registered, opposed, and spoke. That's consistent with the others that are registered there.
Okay. Anything else by anyone else?
Oh, I will note for everybody's knowledge that the parts on Stoner Prairie and Crescent Crossing and McGaw Park were written up quite detailed by Sue, by the chair, which I appreciate. I thought that was very comprehensive. I did go through and looked at my part and just clarified it, a little different rewording and everything. Everybody else is on their own to make sure that what was written is agreement with what they said and all. So as long as no one else wants to change anything. I would also suggest that this should be our standard of detailed writing of the minutes from now on.
As to the edits, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Those in approval of the minutes as edited, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The minutes are carried. Public appearances for non-agenda items. We don't see anybody here today. Review and approve agenda. Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second?
No one in the audience.
Second.
Okay. Those in favor of the agenda as written?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. 5A is Resolution R73-23 approving installation and purchase of a new playground and swing set structure for Clayton Road. So, we're not sure which one we're going to approve, so you want to go ahead and...
I can, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. This is our standard. We try to replace one playground facility every year. We do have a budget of $40,000, and this year it's Clayton Road. And we did receive 4 proposals. And I did do a community survey, which I included the tally in your agenda comments. Proposal 1 received 22 votes, total votes. And what I did, if you received the first place, you got 3 points. If you got second place, and you got 2 points. If you were third, you received 1. Proposal 2 received 4. Proposal 3 received 3. And then Proposal 4 did receive 23 points. And I just did want to make a note that Proposal 1, as part of their proposal, they needed to put a completion date. Proposal 1 was August 31st of this year. Proposal 4 was hopefully they would do it in the fall, but be guaranteed to have it done on June 15th, 2024. So I just wanted to, and actually, Proposal 1 and Proposal 4 were both $40,000. I do have a board. We don't require boards anymore, but this is proposal number 1 from Lee Recreation. They provided a board, which gives you a little bit better view of it, I guess.
Okay. I'll just note one thing I observed, and others may have more important criteria or notice. But number 1, if I'm looking at it correctly, the actual rendering, the layout, looks like number 1 has a little toddler height slide on the one end, on the right end, the blue, and that the number 4 does not, unless I'm just not looking correctly at how number 4 is laid out. So whether that's significant, others can weigh in. I guess when you look at 4, it's got that sort of a long approach stair and well-guarded stairway up to the purple slide that also goes off to the right. So it's not as though that could be a similar feature for the younger kids. It's either one has a sort of a safe route for really young kids, it seems to me. Patrick, you had something?
First, how many people, this Clayton Road is a very small neighborhood. How many people voted on this?
We had, actually, did I have it wasn't, here we go. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people.
9. Okay.
9. 9 people voted?
9 residents voted.
And then just because of the bidding, it's on a page here somewhere, the proposal 1 and 4 put the total that they were asking at 40,000. The second and third, I think that was by, Gerber or something, different company. They had like 1,500 less than the 40,000. I'm just questioning, was this really, really clear that this wasn't a low bid thing? Because it kind of looks like 2 and 3 went for low bid, unless they have maybe an explanation of their standard playground sets that they're proposing just came in at this price, so they gave this price. But it kind of looks like they're thinking low bid, so I'm wondering if it was really clear to all of them. It's more of a question to them, how much can you give us for $40,000?
That's what it is.
Don't bother going lower.
Right. Well, in case in point, each of the different amenities have different costs.
Yeah.
So I suspect they have a certain amount of amenities. So if they would add another amenity, that would put it over the 40,000.
It could be, yeah. I'm just thinking kind of the opposite of, if Gerber thought, well, they're going to go kind of low and maybe they'll win this and they'll give us less, maybe the next $1,500 or $1,501 may give it the wow factor that would win, but it'd be over.
It's pretty clear in the RFP. Your budget is 40, and okay. We'll rate it by the play value that we receive. It's up to them if they, other groups might put in a couple extra pieces of equipment, and it might be 45 or whatever, but they know the budget's 40. But they provide additional amenities for additional play value, and then there's, because that's really one of the criteria that we look at is the play value that each of the proposals have.
Yeah, and so anyway, my point is on future ones, I think it should be really clear of give us as much as you can for this set amount. Everybody go to the maximum. Don't try to cut it. As far as the proposal 1 or option 1 and 4, it came out really close, and I just on the play value and the amount of equipment and such in there, I like 4 better than the recommended 1 from the staff.
And Heidi, I see you would like to comment?
Did we?
Yeah, just to sort of address what Patrick was saying. I mean, I think it's pretty standard with RFPs that whoever's bidding knows that they have up to that amount. And just knowing what I know about Gerber, they're very good at what they do, but they're not really known for giving low prices. So I think they came in with what they could. I agree 1 and 4 obviously are sort of you're getting more for your money. I am inclined, however, to believe that putting the first one in, since we can actually get it in this year, I guess that would be my suggestion. Waiting until June of 2024, I'm not sure that, that's necessary, but that's just my opinion. Thank you.
If I might, just one quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Staff didn't recommend either 1 or 4. As part of the referral and the resolution, I have to do a pre-approval, so I had to select one of the two. So I may have selected wrong, I may have selected right. So I needed to do one of the two, so that's where you see the pre-approval.
Okay. And Scott, a question I have, there currently is play equipment there. Okay. Go ahead, Katie.
Scott, do you know if there is existing playground equipment in any adjacent parks that is very similar to any of these proposed options? Just because I would suggest we choose something slightly different if they bear a lot of similarity.
Yeah, I think it's generally all the same, Katie.
Well, Clayton Road is kind of more
it's-
isolated, isn't
It
it?
really is now that one, I don't know what road it might be Clayton Road, doesn't go through anymore. Yeah, so it is kind of a,
So either of the options would sort of be novel. That's a good question, though. I had never thought of looking at it that way. It does, go ahead, Chris.
I would just say that for other parks, we've heard sort of a desire from residents to have something a little bit more unique and different. And to me, option 1 looks like it's just a little bit more unusual. It's just not quite as your typical, post and platform structure. It has some cool like rope climbing things, and it's just maybe a little bit more unique to me. So for that reason, for that reason, and it's better timeline, I would lean towards 1.
Sarah?
Yep, I will agree with Heidi and Chris as well, that looking at the options included within option 1, I think that it looks like it has a nice variety. And I think that the ability for them to have it installed this year goes a long way, considering it's just 1 point less within the resident scores. So I also lean towards option number 1.
Go ahead, Patrick.
I just, when I say that it looked like the staff recommended 1, on page 8 of the resolution right there, it says, well, it actually says the Park Commission is recommending proposal 1, Lee Recre.
I could certainly, if the Park Commission decides to go with a different one, I'll put it, they propose, and then I'll have to amend the resolution and do a new pre-approval. I just need to, need to present
It's sort
something,
of
so I,
boilerplate to start with, is what you're saying?
what's that?
So it's sort of boilerplate to start with on the
Well,
resolution?
you've got to get a resolution and a referral to the council, and then they refer it out to the groups, and I have to do a pre-approval prior to be included in that referral and resolution, so.
Okay. Northland is well, actually, do it the other way. Lee Recreation is option 1, and Northland is number 4, and I think we've chosen equipment from both of them in the past.
Yes.
Did either of them give an age range, probably 1 up to something for both of them? I'm wondering, it's just, to me, option 1 looks like it's more of little kids, where the age range might go up to something a little less, and option 4, Northland, looks like the age range might go higher. That's another reason, aside from 1 point vote from the neighborhood for 4, the reason that I liked 4. So is there an age range?
The equipment shall be designed for children 5+ years of age.
But the company
Combination of play
doesn't,
equipment. What's that?
the company doesn't say this is good for, what did you say, 5 to what?
5+.
5 plus. Okay,
years of
so
age.
the company doesn't say this is good for 5 to 10, or this is good for 5 to 12 or 14.
I'd swing on those swings.
Well, sure. I mean,
They look to me about the same as far as what the age group they cater to, except for as noted, there's a slide that's on the option one that
A little bit.
looks like it accommodates under 5 or, which is not a bad thing. But I take your point, it's not stated specifically.
Just one more thing, I'm not worried about the installation because the option 4 there does say guaranteed by next year, but they could install it this fall, so that would equal out with 1.
Okay. Now, I've heard most people say option 1. Did I hear that right? Okay.
So I would just make,
Go ahead.
Just one other thing I noticed, I don't know much about this manufacturer, but they are putting a little icon that it's made in Wisconsin. So if it's actually relatively locally manufactured, that also gets extra points in my book.
there you go.
True. And Scott, you were going to say something also?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, just someone can make
Yeah,
a motion.
right.
I'd make a motion to move forward with proposal number 1.
Second.
Okay. Those in favor of proposal 1?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Number 1 it is. Thank you.
Thank you, and I guessed right.
Okay, 5B, Resolution R 5623, approving 2023 spring tree planting plan. I will move to approve that resolution. Seconded?
Second.
Okay, Heidi's second. Discussion? Scott?
Yep, we received 5 bids. We had a total of 210 trees, combination of park trees, street trees, development trees. Really good prices. We've worked with SRB before in the past. A real solid price, and this is for the tree planted and a 1-year guarantee. So staff would, certainly, we've worked with SRB before in the past. And satisfied with their work.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Scott, if I could just say, I'm really impressed that you guys have been able to get so many bids. That's wonderful, and they're all, relatively close, dollar-wise to each other.
Go ahead.
SRB is the company that has been used for the last several years, correct?
Oh, boy, that's a good question.
I-
know Dan Larson may have had it a year or 2 ago.
Okay, my recollection is I've seen SRB.
And even McKay's, I think, have received it.
What?
Once. McKay's have even received it in the past. And I will tell you what, these are not the only trees that we plant throughout the year. So what Anna will do is she'll work with the other contractors if we have a smaller planting plan and give them some business also.
Is there any feedback from the forester about the success rate of the trees? They have a 1-year guarantee, so in other words, does anybody count how many trees have died within the 1 year that then have to be replaced? I mean, if 80% of them are dying from a certain company, that would be
Yeah, that's not we have a pretty good success rate. I'd say 85, maybe 90%.
success.
Yep, but they do check them, and then we get warranties, and
Okay.
they replace them. No, really successful, which is also good.
All right, any other discussion, comments, questions? Those in favor of the R 5623, the spring tree planting plan, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Now we're at item C, Resolution R 7123, approving dog playground improvements in Crescent Crossing Outlot 1. Is there a motion to approve?
All motion.
Second? Okay. Scott, please.
This is, we're continuing to develop the Outlot 11, which is the dog playground. As you recall, I think it was last fall, towards the end of fall, they received the approval for the fence. Now they're beginning to do the actual amenities within the The playground, one note, and I don't know if you followed along, but the original proposal that they received was over budget compared to what the arrangement or the agreement is. So what they did then is they reduced the landscaping costs to fall within the parameters that we do have within that agreement with them. And that's
That's
about
the
it.
story?
That's my story, yeah.
Any questions or comments?
Does the landscaping still comply with any other city requirements that would have been approved as a part of Plan Commission?
Yes, yes, yes. And one thing of note too is we wanted to stay away from the power line easements, just because they gave us an agreement to plant anything in there, but, just when we'd have to end up, pruning it or maintaining it, so we wanted to make sure we stayed away from that.
Go ahead.
One question, I didn't see it on the plans here at all. There is no drinking fountain in this dog park, right?
I don't believe so.
I'm thinking not, and I'm wondering if there was one, it'd probably be a separate item cost,
What-
separate from, the facilities that are being installed here. And
Right.
this is a Fitchburg City Park, so
Correct.
it would be on one of the CIP lists there for a drinking fountain.
You could certainly add it.
Probably.
For sure, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, that's moving good. Wow.
Okay. Those in favor of approval of R 7123, the dog playground improvements, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Our motion passes. Now, item D is Southdale Park update. Go ahead, Scott.
And this is really a prelude to the CIP that we're going to be discussing next. And this was the old, I was able to scan. This is the Southdale Park master plan, if you would. And when was it? It was in
1995, I think.
1995, so it's been there for a while, but like I say, it's kind of it gives you an idea if you haven't had a chance to get out there. I know a lot of people have gone out and visited, but it certainly is, wore out, if you would. And I know this year what we're looking to do in the CIP is redo the basketball court, along with getting a park ID sign. But like I say, in the 2024 CIP, which we'll get to it, we've kind of identified a shelter with a bathroom and some playgrounds, but the idea might be maybe we'll just keep that dollar amount in there as a placeholder, and we'll maybe do a little bit of a neighborhood park planning process to determine what really we want to do in there. I think certainly playground dollar allocation is safe, but there may be other things that we're looking to do. So I guess when we get to the CIP, what I would suggest is that we recommend to change the language to be more, more general and keep the dollar amount there, but let the planning process take place so that we can figure out exactly what we want to do. So that was really kind of Sue suggested as a reason to kind of talk about this before the CIP.
Right, and thanks to everyone who was able to, and I know not everyone has the time or can find the time to visit, but to explore it one way or another, virtually or on foot. And it's just so different because in every other case, the park exists and the staff is familiar with it and they can see what needs replacing in each one as time goes on. And here the whole thing just kind of lands in the lap in the condition that it's in. So it's nice, I think, to have this plan, not that we go over it. It's not here for us to talk about tonight, every square inch or anything, but just exactly as Scott has said, to talk about capital improvements for this next year. And then there's enough people with interest and expertise. We're all interested. Otherwise, we wouldn't be on the committee to come up with a plan to bring it up to snuff over the next couple of years. I hope. So that's, I mean, we could move on then unless anyone would like to comment. Go ahead.
Is this considered a neighborhood or an area park?
I think we have it as an area park.
And this being an existing park that has been turned over to Fitchburg, I would have to figure there is zero park dedication money in any fund for this park?
No, right, there isn't.
Right?
There isn't, right.
So everything would have to be what? Property tax levy or borrowing?
Borrowed or maybe ARPA TID,
Okay.
potentially one-time spending.
Yeah, maybe
It's
ARPA
got to be all
TID.
new.
Yeah. Maybe ARPA TID would be okay, but I mean, as an area park or maybe neighborhood, seems kind of more like neighborhood, but it wouldn't be eligible for the highest level community park level of funds. So it's kind of digging for money to pay
Well,
for things here.
and I think, just as Sue indicated, it's kind of a special circumstance, if you would, so there may be some special circumstances that kind of allow us, or, I don't want to speak for anybody, but, I think it's kind of a unique situation where we, like you say, we just received it, so.
Yeah.
And the city, I tell you, they've moved the soccer goals, put in soccer nets, have removed some trees, and so we're beginning to start to take care of it. And like I say, we're going to replace the basketball court, and when we do that, we'll put in new standards, and they fix the park ID, they fix the sign, and so there's, plus the bike repair station is there, so. And actually, Anna's going to have Arbor Day activity there. And actually, I've got a group that's going to do a petting zoo. Every year there's a group that does a petting zoo for us that kind of goes to all the healthy neighborhoods there at Hugo, Jamestown, but they're going to go to Southdale this year. So beginning to start to get connections in the neighborhood. There's a staff person who doesn't live there but has an office, so they circulate all the information. Working on the community gardens, beginning to start it's removing ash trees, those, it's slow but sure, but I'm certain that the residents there see that there's a city of Fitchburg presence there, so that's good.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's just move on then to our capital improvement plan for 2024 to 32. We'll have a motion to approve the plan. I'll move to approve the plan. Anyone second?
I'll second.
Okay,
Sue, that's Katie.
Comment.
Sue?
go ahead.
I ask that this time that we go through the CIP pages one page at a time, seriously considering each page and deliberate, looking at each page, because this is our one chance in the year to review, hundreds of thousands of dollars or more of these projects for the next year, and look at each page individually and allow Scott a chance to point out any points of interest on each page and make sure we're done with each page before we go on to the next page, so we don't have to keep backing up.
And
previous.
maybe just in addition to that, we're really concentrating on what's approved for 2024. So no, that's actually, we can do that. Page, do you want me to?
Yes,
begin?
please.
Page 99, that is a kind of a summary. You see all the projects, if you would, to the left, and then the grand totals for each year.
There's actually a page 98.
Well, yeah.
Well, that's 97, actually, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's 97 of your packet. Okay, so you see that. Then the first one is McGaw Park Improvement. And actually, this CIP has been reallocated. So all these projects are reallocated to a different CIP. Good with that one?
Does that mean that there is no more 6211 and 6212?
You see, this is, I believe so, Patrick. This is the finance department. They're really kind of doing a good job of trying to streamline all of these kinds of things. So I think that's, at the end of the day, that's that's the thing, is McGaw Park improvements are going to be reallocated amongst the different categories.
Yeah, that's
It's
what I
not
kinda-
just the park itself.
Yeah, that's what I kind of read into it.
I
That
think
everything
that's-
was moved out to other, but that's why I wanted to know if like 6211 and 6212 for McKee were just kind of like
same.
closed and dead or so.
Yep. So that's 6212. Then we got the Moraine Edge Park land, and that's in $2 million in 2029. And again, it's kind of a placeholder,
Okay.
and once it gets within 5
Al-
years, then in
Already
theory,
going
we
kinda
can begin to
fast
start
here.
to work on it.
Right. Patrick, was there something about 6211 or 6212? Because those now are just closed out, right? Yeah.
Okay, I just got lots of things marked here, and I don't want to have to say, wait, go back.
Okay. All right. So we
Good,
did
PC.
6211 and 6212. Are you all right with those?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the next one was the Moraine Edge Park, which it's way out to 2029, so it's not for a deep dive today. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. Then, this one's an active one, 6259, reoccurring park system improvements. And what I've done is I've checked off the ones that were completed in 2022, and you can kind of see in 2023, we've got the Southdale Park ID sign, and we also have the the basketball court redo, which I mentioned previously, and then there's the Clayton Playground update.
And I have a question about the basketball court for Southdale. Does that figure, what do you think about that estimated figure? Pricing, what bids coming in around there? Or
Yep, that's what, yeah.
you think it'll cover it?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
oh, yeah.
all right.
And like I said, what that'll do is that'll also include 2 state-of-the-art hoops, if you would. Also in 2023, we've got, as I mentioned, the Clayton Playground, and then we're also replacing the McKee basketball court. That one might be a little bit smaller at 30.
Question on that point. Yeah, there is a basketball at the south end, so I was wondering if that was repairing the existing?
Yep.
Or an
No,
additional court, or what?
It's going to be replace it, so we'll rip it out and then redo it.
I'm thinking that's a full court already, right?
It is, yep. Both McKee and Southdale are full courts.
Really?
Are they, when you say full court, I can define that in my head 2 different ways, that it's got a goal on each
Yes.
side, or full meaning certain regulation size of some sort?
No, basketball court, a basketball hoop on both ends.
Okay,
Full-
so they may be 3/4 size.
And a lot of
or
the
something
neighborhood
like that.
parks are just single courts.
Correct, but then full meaning, yeah.
2
They
baskets.
might be 3/4 size or to a regulation court, but they.
Yeah,
if
not
they-
quite, yeah.
Not
About
even?
3/4, yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be safe.
okay.
Is there such a thing as a 3/4?
No, I'm just guesstimating, just by
It's not
eyeballing
the
it.
regulation size.
It's not they're not a regulation size, but you can play a full game because there's a goal on each end.
Yeah. Or 2 separate teams play and use
Yeah.
1 basket each. I've seen that a lot.
Yeah,
Question?
go ahead.
Up a little higher right there, back on the 2019 budget, remove water fountain for Belmar Hills. I recall that was removed, but I thought something or other, maybe in the ARPA funds, replaced it and put it
I
back in,
think
but I
it is, yeah.
could not find that anywhere. Is that going to be somewhere else? It looks like this is the right category for
That
it.
would be in the ARPA TID project plan. That's-
There's a separate fund number for ARPA money?
Yep.
Okay, then we'll get to that then, right?
No, we won't see that.
We won't? Why not?
That's the ARPA, yeah, that's a finance, and what we do is we submit projects to the ARPA TID project. The Parks Department,
But it doesn't mean that all of those projects will be possible. It's like a wish list. We want to do this, but every year we are going to go through the list and determine which one has priority.
Was that more than a one-time? I thought that, there was voting, there was amendments and everything that went on either earlier this year or last year on the ARPA funds?
Yeah, we did that, but our projects are like almost $2 million more than what the money that we have. So there are going to be some compromise in the future. We are not going to be able to do all the project.
But is the ARPA money just in 1 year, in other words, one big check written, or is it
No, it was 2
multiple
years.
years
2
that
years.
money is coming?
In 2 batches.
2 budgets?
Batches. 2 installment payment.
2 payments?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we already got the first one.
Okay, so the second one is coming and that'll be decided, or projects allocated to that later.
I think priorities.
Okay.
Any other questions on that point? Nope. Okay, Scott.
Well, one thing, if I would, for 2024, we did increase the Hugo Jamestown path lighting from 15 to 20, or from 10 to 15. Just kind of highlighted there. Well, now here's your opportunity, Patrick. You almost missed it.
I have a series of questions that I will ask one at a time, and I have a motion at the end, so I'm not done talking until I get through the motion. On the second page there, which is page 10, I don't know, it's either 104 or 106 in our packet, depending on which page number you look at. Third line down, 2024, which is the next year, which is what you're planning for. New volleyball posts, $10,000 on the property tax levy. This was moved from the McGaw CIP 6211. So the funding is from property tax levy. So first question.
Just a clarification, Patrick, all of these projects are tax fund levy.
Okay, not a good thing to start with. First question, Scott, why is this on here?
Well, and if you actually provided some pictures, Patrick, and if you look, it's an older set of standards, if you would, compared to the one set has a crank on it, and the other one is an older standard. And typically, we always try to update and improve the facilities within the park system, and that's really what this is for. Like I said, just as I mentioned with basketball courts, when we take out a basketball court, we'll remove the old basketball standard and put in a new one. So it's really just like this whole account is for, is to update older equipment. So that's really the justification behind it.
So the justification is just on the crank mechanism on the
It makes it easier for the user who's out there to potentially fix the net or tighten the net, or even staff to do it.
Okay, living right next to this park and walking through it every day and watching the groups in the past several summers who have played there, nobody ever cranks it. The park staff, when they put the nets up, didn't even use the crank mechanism to attach and tie up the nets. They've got it strung up with U-bolts and various bolts and tie things in the nets and everything. They're not even using the crank. But this is a brand new reason now about, the cranks. I don't know if they even work because I haven't seen anybody even try to crank them or put any WD-40 on them to see if they still work or anything. They don't use the cranks. The reason that you gave before was the posts are leaning, which I gave the pictures to prove that they're not leaning in any way that affects the games. So, next question. Okay, so the answer to that one is because of the cranks, which are not used.
Well, the answer, I guess, is we're continuing to try to update the amenities that we have within the park system. Playgrounds, basketball courts, volleyball courts. And that's really what this fund is designed. Reoccurring park system improvements.
Okay, but if the reason to replace all of these four, I don't know what it is, whichever ones of these, is because of the cranks, nobody, either the parks crew or the players, are using the cranks at all. The nets are up there and tied up, and they use them through the summer. The nets have been left up through winter even. So that's kind of a non-reason answer.
Well, and we
Next question.
I have a quick question about just volleyball. That's league play there that occurs. Is there,
Pardon me?
league play occurs
No,
there, or is
no.
just a lot of spontaneous
Yep.
groups?
Well, and the shelter rental group will play there, but there's no organized leagues there, no.
Okay,
This is played by groups, and I've gotten familiar with some of the groups. I see them there for the last several years, that they come, there's one group especially that comes, I think every night, Monday through Friday night, and plays. They've been doing this
Well, they do, actually.
for some coincidence through the last 3 COVID years. And I've even asked them in particular, are they okay with these posts? Do they see anything wrong with these posts? They see nothing wrong with the posts. They play with them, play on the courts right there perfectly fine. There are 2 sand courts and 2 grass courts. I have seen people use the grass courts ever since when I requested last year that nets be put up on the other 2 posts that had not been used in 10 years. And the sand just sprouted grass. So now they're grass courts, but people are using those too. So there's nets up on all 4, and people are using them. Next question is: does this have are you justifying anything to do with the posts leaning? Because that's what you said before.
Oh, they're leaning. I think it just, they're old and they've been there for a while, and typically when, I think it's good practice to repair and replace park amenities that have been there for a while. That's just what we do, is we replace stuff.
Are you talking about some of the posts or all of the posts, or what? There's 4 courts, 2 posts on each. So what are you proposing to replace here with 10,000?
2 posts, the 2 that are
2 posts.
old.
Which 2?
North,
The north courts.
the north courts, yeah.
The,
Not the
the
grass.
2 courts in the north, or 2 posts of one of the 2 courts that are to the north? There's 2 to the north and 2 full. There's 2 courts to the north and there's 2 courts to the south. Each court has 2 posts, so you're proposing to replace 2 posts on 1 court on the north for $10,000.
The 2 courts, yep.
The 2 courts to the north.
The 2 courts to the north. Yeah.
Okay, and if anyone looks at the pictures, and I can tell you very clearly, the two courts with 2 posts each, which means 4 posts to the north, are much newer and in much better condition. They are obviously newer than the ones to the south. Nobody uses a crank mechanism, so I can't tell you offhand if they crank okay, because nobody uses that, not even the parks crew.
okay,
But they're in really good shape.
Get the
okay.
point.
Julia wanted to comment too.
Yes, my comment is, these new volleyball posts are only for McGaw Park, because in McGee Farm Park we have volleyball courts and in other parks. So I think we need to have some money there for replacement, no matter where they are located. Is that correct, Scott?
Okay, I'm still going through my questions, and since Julia raised that point about McKee, yeah, there's 2 courts in McKee, and it's very strange that nothing is mentioned about the McKee courts, because they're pretty much in the same condition as the 2 south courts in McGaw. They lean inwards. None of these posts on any of the courts, the 4 in McGaw or the 2 in McKee, lean to one player's side or the other at all. So there's no reason to replace them based on leaning, because they don't lean to either side.
Okay, now, here's my question, because Julia raised this point, and the way this is written here now is, it doesn't specify that it has to be for McGaw Park, and so because it has that number attached,
It was specifically McGaw.
in this process here, are we able to make it more general for the park system?
But if Scott's saying the McGaw Park posts or volleyball posts are the oldest that need to be replaced, shouldn't we list the
Yeah.
park that would?
If they want to take another look before they go ahead, and if they happen to see that one is needed more than another, it just frees up the variety, or it makes it more options available to the staff, I guess, if we.
and I will tell you that to come up with this list for 7, 8, 9, 10 years is kind of a moving target, if you
Yeah.
would. So we do go out and take a look, and you'll notice over the years that the playgrounds, may shift here and there depending on conditions and things, so, you know, if we're saying the volleyball courts at McGaughan need to be, there's a set of volleyball courts that need to be redone, I guess that's what we're recommending, and that's really what, you know, this account is for, is to replace the older playgrounds or the basketball courts or whatever it might be, so.
But you are saying to replace the two courts to the north, which are in perfect shape, and I will meet you out there at any time, and we can look at them, as we did several years ago, you and I, Scott, and I stood you at the end, and I asked you, are those leaning? And you said no. Never heard about the crank thing before. They don't use the cranks. The ones at McKee are basically the same, and you've never proposed replacing those, and I would not support replacing those. They work just fine. So I will cut off the grilling questions and just move my motion right here to eliminate and take this off the list entirely of new volleyball posts for $10,000 based on it is not needed at all, one little bit. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
And actually, that applies to McKee as well, McGaw and McKee.
I'll second.
All right, those in favor,
Question,
go ahead.
I am not an expert on how the CIP process works, but if we eliminate that, choose to eliminate that as a line item, I feel like we're writing off that $10,000 that we could put towards these or other ones in the future when they're needed. So rather than eliminating it, if we vote that they're not necessary to be replaced right now, wouldn't the better alternative be to move it down the list another year or 2 years so we don't risk losing that money entirely?
Well,
Maybe
if
just
I'm
like-
not mistaken, I think, and Patrick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the catching point is that it's levy, and it's not necessarily the $10,000, but actually where it's coming from.
Well, and we receive the same allocation every year from the levy for this CIP, so, you know, we may even have a balance in that account. This is our, kind of our way to manage the dollars that were allocated annually, so we wouldn't, to Chris's point, to move it, you know, just give us $10,000 more for 2023, so we wouldn't lose the dollars. You know, it just would accumulate or continue on. We receive, well, see, here you go, down the bottom, 12/31/21, the fund balance is $110,182. So that's how much money was in this account on December 31st, 2021.
I have a couple points on that. I am not at all in favor of saving ways to spend money, especially if it's on property tax or borrowing. So I would be more in favor of just removing this off the list. If it means that the money stays in the fund balance, that's fine. But this is a very wasteful, unnecessary $10,000 spent on this right here. I'd rather, see it saved in the fund balance at the total right there at the bottom. And as far as shifting it to later years, that just is putting off the whole point. This is not necessary to take this out. Another point of moving money around, just as example, for example, there was a dumpster closer in McKee that was proposed, and the council voted to take that $30,000 away from that dumpster and apply it towards, I think it was siding of the McKee shelter instead. So money has in the past been unallocated from one proposed project, such as that dumpster enclosure, which is really a waste of money, and then use it for something more worthwhile, which I think is now slated. It's in here somewhere in the notes, slated for maybe for siding for the McKee shelter instead. So if anything, that's what I would propose here, is take this project, $10,000 away from it, cancel this proposal, and just leave the money in the fund balance, and it can be spent on something actually useful later.
Julia wanted to.
And that's what your motion is, right, Patrick?
Yes.
So my comment is I am not going to approve this because, this is a capital improvement plan. So this is a placeholder. And this is eventually we will need to repair this volleyball post and we need to have the money there. Because if we remove it, then maybe next year or in 2 years we need to put it back. and who knows what happens. So if we keep it there, the money, and most of this replacement is paying with levy, because they are replacements. So we don't use park dedication fee or anything like that. Most of this is levy money. I don't know, maybe you need to remove the levy money there. But I think we need to be strategic about what we are going to remove from here, because then if we need to put it back, who knows? So this is a placeholder. This is the capital improvement plan is a placeholder. It's a list of things that we want to fix, and always all of these things can change. Sometimes we don't follow year by year all the projects. Sometimes we move one project to another project, or we are constantly. This is an evolving and continue, list that things can happen next year. Yes, some of them, but there are circumstances sometimes the project can be moved to 1 year or 2 years. So removing, eventually we will need to fix this post, and we prefer to have the money in 2024 and 2025, but we need to keep the money in the CIP. So I want to vote no for your amendment.
Okay, Patrick, go ahead.
Okay, my point is that these posts don't need to be fixed, and this is for 2024. So if we leave this in here right now, the posts will be ripped out. The two courts with 4 perfectly good posts, as Scott is explaining, will be ripped out. Go and look at them. They don't need to be changed, replaced. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not going to break in the next 2 years. I'm okay with just canceling this proposal right here, new volleyball post, and leaving the $10,000 in the fund balance. And again, I don't like the idea of spending property tax money, because that's worse than park dedication money. Park dedication money is sitting in other accounts right here in funds, and it has to be used within a certain number of years, or else the developers get it back, all of that trouble. So that we need to actually spend. This right here is property tax money. This is on all of us right here. This is like $10,000 out of property tax levy, means everybody in the whole city has to contribute like 30 cents or something. Or unless somebody wants to write a check for $10,000, anybody
right.
want to speak up and do that.
Okay, so are there any other comments on this motion to remove the volleyball posts? Okay, we'll vote. All those in favor of removal of the volleyball posts so that the funding remains, but the actual replacement of the posts specified is now removed, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. All right, so that does not
Roll
pass.
call.
Okay, Heidi Reynolds.
I voted, aye.
Yeah. Sarah Schroeder.
Nay.
Chris Sina.
Nay.
Katie McDonald.
Nay.
Patrick Cheney.
Aye.
Julia Arada Frada. Name. Okay.
On the bottom of that kind of indicate the projects that have been completed, so,
Can I ask a question here?
sure.
I don't know. We have received a lot of email from the Chicory Meadow neighborhood. The tennis court needs to be replaced. We removed that funding, last year. So talking to Scott and some of the neighbors, they are willing to fundraise half of the, if they can, most of the money or half of the money for this. And I think that I will add here to put back the repair of the tennis court with the condition that half of the funds being fundraised by the neighbors.
And if we look on page 105,
Okay.
you see in 2024, under the CIP for tennis pickleball court improvements, 2024, it says Chicory Meadow Tennis Court Replacement, $160,000 through grants or donations. Funding source changed. So if I'm hearing what Julia is saying, if they raise 80, then we'd want to keep 80 in there.
Yeah.
Well, that's the next one there, 6263, right?
Yeah,
So we're still on 6259.
well, and I think we can move to 62.
A couple questions on 6259.
Oh, all right.
I see, reading through all of the 2024, 25, 26, 28, I see Arrowhead Playground, 40,000, Chicory Meadow Playground, 50,000, Rimrock, 40,000, Shappy, 40,000, Greenfield, 60,000, Fitchburg Strings, which is a very small park, 60,000. What is this based on? 40, 50, 60?
Yeah, just as time goes by, things get expensive, more expensive.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
we've
that,
been
And they're
spending 40,000 on playground equipment all along, except for there was two recently. One being the western edition of McGaw Park was 60,000 because it was a community park, and one other somewhere was 60,000. I forget which one that was, but this seems kind of arbitrary. Chicory Meadow, Greenfield, Fitchburg Strings.
well, and I think they, by just
60,000,
by
I don't
nature of
know.
the process, they have to be somewhat arbitrary, because we just don't know about inflation and
Well,
supply lines, et
But
cetera.
that's what I'm asking here is where are these numbers coming from? If it's based on neighborhood or area criteria or future or what?
That's basically on the replacement cost of a neighborhood playground. Chicory Meadow might be a little bit larger potentially, but, in a couple, 3, 4, 5 years, that continues to go up. So it's a placeholder, and
Well, they're not exactly in order of increasing funding, and it's
Well,
a pretty good jump from 40 to 50 to 60.
Well, some of these, like Rimrock is a small playground,
Chicory's a little bit bigger.
and then, yeah, the other's larger, so
So there is a little bit.
I think there's some logic
thought
there.
into it, yeah.
I'm asking for the logic, yeah.
Well, I think that is the logic. Go ahead, Julia.
This is our placeholder, and it's for 2028. Who knows how much it's going to cost
we're-
it? So
Yeah.
what we are trying to put in this list, all the projects that we want to do, or they need to be fixed, and eventually the money will come.
It's
Yeah, when we get closer, then we get,
concentrating on 2024.
yeah.
Yeah,
When we get closer to those, 5 years out and more, it's just an entirely different set of facts.
In the years right here, it's not this far ahead, and it would make more sense and be more consistent if it was all set at 40,000, unless there's a good reason to jump by 10,000 or 20,000.
Can I ask another thing? And also the mayor recommend all of the head of department in a meeting that I was that they need to bump up all the fee or all the amount here because of inflation. And so
So, right, the mayor specifically requested adjusting up. Katie, I saw you.
It was simply that I am in favor of increasing these numbers as we move forward in years ahead. I agree that they should be going up, because I think even $40,000 for playground equipment is potentially not enough.
It seems like quite a jump up, is what I'm saying. Another question here. Down in the, I suppose it would be in the previous group, but I didn't find it. I was looking for something. This actually has the past project, Hugo Jamestown enclosed the ball field for $20,000. Now, that was the contentious thing where it was put in. The neighbors and the alders hated it. It was pulled out. But in the same year, or maybe 2020 or 1 or 22, the McGaw north field outfield fence was replaced for about $20,000, and I couldn't find that listed anywhere here.
That's an operational cost.
Then why isn't Hugo Jamestown?
Well, that was new at the time.
That's the difference?
That was new at the time, yeah,
Where does an operational cost? Is it a different fund?
yeah.
Which one?
Well,
I looked through all these pages for it.
But no, the operating budget's not here on the agenda. Yeah.
Isn't it a CIP?
This
You-
is
it-
CIP.
Right, operating is replacing something that already exists, and capital improvement is new. Correct? Okay.
I saw a note in here that kind of related to this. I don't know what page it's on. Oh, Yeah, right at the bottom right here on page 104, it says 2023 to 2032, Council CIP amendment added staff costs to remove the ball field fence from Hugo James Town Park. Noted in here as part of a CIP. That was an odd thing that you're suddenly counting the staff costs towards a CIP project. It was listed as a CIP to put it in and then to take it out. And
I think this council,
well, the council ordered it taken out.
well, correct, I think that, however, that was recommended to be dealt with. On the page 104 of 168, or the,
Yeah,
or it says 106 right above 104. It's
Right.
the very bottom line. It just says budget impact other. The council CIP amendment added staff costs
So what
to
does it mean?
remove it.
Is that, what does it mean is that it's going to be an impact in the operational budget. That's it. That's it. This is what they want to say. It's going to affect the operation budget, not the CIP.
Just kind of a finance note on the budget impact.
okay. With that, I believe I have covered all my questions for 6259. So now we can go on.
Call 6263, and then Julia, I think you made a recommendation to keep Chicory Meadow in there with 80
Correct.
from donations and 80 from the fund.
And that's our only thing for 2024, which we're focusing on. Any other comments on that? It's very nice that the neighbors are interested in participating in that. Very nice.
Now, in this fund,
Maybe we should take a first and a second and a motion, and so I can then include that in.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought because it's listed here, if we vote on the whole.
Oh, all right,
thing.
all right.
Is that all right?
yeah, that would be
Okay.
proper, yeah.
Because it is already here. I think that would
Yeah.
remain included. Okay.
Yeah, if we're changing something, then we'd want to make a motion. As I understand this 62, 63, and I've talked with Scott round and round a few emails, what I'm understanding here, and so just to get this clear and onto our record and for the audience to understand this, I think the way that you explained this to me is that money has not been forthcoming for tennis and pickleball. There's really only the one dedicated pickleball place. But since other tennis courts exist and they have not been receiving funding for repair or replacement or even any new ones anywhere, that you proposed maybe a couple of years ago that I guess this category here is specifically the tennis/pickleball court improvements, and that the proposal is that McKee will be the tennis court complex, and McGaw will be the pickleball complex. And if you want to play tennis, go to McKee. If you want to play pickleball, go to McGaw. And the other existing tennis courts that are scattered around Swan Creek and such, wherever they may be, are kind of left to go on their own. They don't get specifically repaired or replaced unless there's grants or donations. But the proposal is that they would essentially not be funded by the city anymore through any CIP. Is that a good explanation?
Yep, that's accurate.
Okay. Not exactly really in favor of that, personally. Is there something that we can do to encourage budget money from the city in some source or other? You know, getting like $160,000 in donations from the neighbors right around a neighborhood park, let's say Swan Creek or something like that, or other ones, Chicory Meadow, is going to be kind of tough, and I don't know how many grants are available for this. Is there something we should like reconsider on
Yes,
that?
please go ahead, Julia.
So what we want to say is that, we are finding out that we have too many things to maintain and repairs that is going to become critical with the sources, the amount of resources and fund that we have to do that we need to be, we will need to make a decision that which are the priorities. And eventually, Scott has mentioned that he wants to, the tennis court in McKee Farm Park, because they are the people where we have 8, I think, 6, 8, I don't remember. Yeah. So, and they played from, I don't know, starting in April until December. If it doesn't snow, you can see that they're playing tennis there. So those one are priority. The pickleball and McGo are priority. And yes, we have a lot of other neighborhood that they have parks with tennis court that we don't know if we're going to have all the funding to repair all of that, because those things are becoming costly and costly. So I think if we get grants, if we can access other funding sources, great. But at one point, this is the idea also when we build new parks, we need to consider, okay, if we are bringing all this amenity to park, how much is going to cost to maintain that in the next 10 to 15 years, Are we going to be able to maintain? Because right now we are not able to maintain all the tennis court or the basketball court. So I think we are making the decision that which are the priorities that we need to maintain, and we are going to try to do the best that we can do with the resources that we have to maintain the other ones. But, so this is what we are trying to say here with this, with the proposal that Scott wants to do, with the tennis court and the pickleball. So
Yeah, and I recognize that, funding is difficult for anything, but we're the park commission, so we should have an interest in continuing to, have it in at some level of priority with the city to provide some funding. This proposal right here seems to just kind of abandon the separate little tennis courts all over that are existing now and say, oh, don't bother to give us any more money because we're just not going to ask for another dollar for any of these separate scattered tennis courts. We'll find money outside from donations and grants, not from the city anymore. And from being on the park commission here, I think we should have a little more interest in keeping in line, even if we're far back in line for some money, that city money from somewhere or other should still kind of be requested at least, and see if it's available somehow for tennis courts.
Well, and maybe if I might, just a little bit of a fallback position from the staff perspective. We've been requesting dollars to repair the basketball courts for several years and really haven't received that funding.
You mean the tennis courts?
For the tennis,
Okay.
I'm sorry, for the tennis courts. So the idea is that we've got a big repair going on at McKee Farms Park for the tennis courts there. And we just built the pickleball court, so, a bit of a strategy might have been that, okay, we understand that we don't have the dollars and the resources to repair and replace these other sets of tennis courts, but on the other hand, okay, you'll provide dollars to help us provide the tennis courts and the pickleball courts for our community for a good long time. So there's a priority, there's a give and take. We weren't having any success in trying to get those other tennis courts repaired. So, okay, can we spend $750,000 to repair the McKee Farms Park ones, so that they're then our courts, and all the dollars we're spending at McGaw for the pickleball courts, that's kind of the trade-off. And if that receives support from the council, I think that's a good move from the park commission, because like I say, we just haven't had success in securing dollars for the maintenance of the tennis courts.
Well, and something else to consider, I think, is that, the one that's coming up is the Chicory Meadows for 2024. It's sort of a test case. Julia's telling us neighbors have an interest, and it's a way for us and the council to assess, well, how did that idea work? And I see Heidi has her hand up to comment.
Well, I just want to agree with what Julia and Scott are saying, that you know, it would be nice if every park could be maintained and have all the bells and whistles, but it, you know, neighborhoods change, parks have to change with them. And I think Scott made a good point that, you know, I mean, we look at, for instance, the inclusive park, and then, you know, the other McKee and McGaw and all these parks that we've invested quite a bit in. And those are the bigger parks, and it's probably more important to maintain those than some of the smaller parks that maybe get less use and maybe don't need as many bells and whistles.
Okay.
Scott's misspeak there was interesting when you mentioned basketball courts, because yes, there is a McKee tennis complex and a McGaw pickleball complex, but basketball courts, well, they're scattered around. We have them in various parks, and they're not really much different than a tennis or a pickleball as far as a big court and the cost of installing it. I know there's dollars, whatever the dollar levels are, but it's like, you know, what if we picked Park X and made that the basketball court complex and then abandoned all the basketball courts?
Well,
And then
no,
what about the volleyball?
I don't agree with that premise
I
because,
I wouldn't propose that or support it.
Okay.
But it's like, are we going to, if you want to play a certain sport, you got to drive to the right park to play it, rather than just walk over to your nearby park?
I'm just trying to secure dollars to maintain facilities that we have.
But I don't like the idea of this right here. It kind of cuts out, we will not ask the city for any dollars anymore, because it will all be, by decree right here, donations or grants.
well, let's see what 2024 brings us, because this is a change to get some of these other parks and neighborhoods that surround them who have an interest in it to try this fundraising option. Because otherwise, I mean, we've been waiting umpteen years just to deal with what's at McKee Farms Park. So, I mean, I'm comfortable with this as it is, understanding that it's not a perfect world, and we just are not handed all the money we'd like to have every amenity at the various satellite regions around the city.
Okay, just as a point that you made about funding in the future, as Julia said, there's apparently ARPA funding, one big check coming, or one big check that we've got and another one that's coming. Well, if we rule out ARPA fund, for example, which this seems to do, then we would not be asking for any tennis court from ARPA in the next check that comes. It just seems like we're not even going to ask, which doesn't seem right.
Okay, yeah, Julia, go ahead.
So you remember when we were talking about ARPA, and I told you, if you have projects that you want to be funded with ARPA or ideas, you know, I asked that question, you know, and I didn't receive any email from you with a project.
This idea here is a new
So
thing.
what I'm telling you, the ARPA funds already, they are like $10 million in project, and we only have, between the ARPA and the teeth closure, we have $8 million. So there is a gap of $2 million because we have all these good projects that we want to do, and I hope that we can do it and we can find the money to do it. But right now, it's a list, it's a wish list with all these good projects that we want to bring to the city. And we are doing some of those projects as they come and priority. But, you know, and I understand what you're saying, you know, that yes, it's some of those small, the tennis court on those small park, they are not going to get the attention right now because there is no money for those until we figure out how we're going to find the money. Because our park system has grown so much in the last 10 years that we cannot, you know, the budget has not grown at the same level that all the resources that we already put in those parks. So, and it's hard. I understand your frustration. I think it's all our frustration because we would like to invest in all the parks, but eventually at one point right now, in the next 2 or 3 years, we need to make this decision.
Well, this ARPA thing is out of the sky money coming, so I'm not real familiar with it. I'm just hearing here that apparently there's a second round of ARPA fund of another check in the future. So I don't know if we're closed out on getting things onto that list, waiting for that second check to come, or if we do another round of discussion.
No, it's done. It's done. The money, that money is already, that future money that is coming, the second installment is already
Basically already spent?
it's been assigned to project.
Yeah, assigned.
So it's not like we are going to receive another new batch of money, new money. No, they already, in the $8 million is everything, the ARPA and the closure money from two districts, 6 and 4. So that one is but this money is already allocated.
So the list is already closed. The trouble is, this right here is kind of a new proposal coming before us, I think, about we're going to cut off funding for tennis courts and I guess pickleball courts. And also last year, the ARPA list has already been finalized and closed as far as adding things on. So it's kind of like we didn't have an overlap of asking for ARPA funds for tennis courts. That's passed, and then, well, I mean, we didn't know to ask, maybe.
No, we put $700,000 are going to go to the McKee Farm Park.
For McKee, yeah.
Well, but it's
This is about other
$700,000. We don't.
You saw it, Pat.
It's a big chunk of money that we are going to use for park. And we already add money for the shelter in the inclusive program
Hill,
too
which
for
we'll get,
2024, 25,
We'll
another
get to it,
160. We had a lot of good projects
We
for
did.
parks with ARPA.
Thanks to Julia, we got a lot.
We could
lot of
always
park projects.
use more money, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what I said, we add a lot of parks. We are going to fund a lot of projects for the park system with ARPA fund.
Right.
But we can not fund everything. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm just raising the point right there. This seems like we're cutting this off and didn't realize we had a chance or so. I mean, the money is, I guess, already spent.
Well, let's just,
And this says we're not going to ask for.
not for 2024. I think we should just leave this as is.
Well, in one note, if I might, you can see that in 2023, we began the replacement of the pickleball courts already for $19,000 a year, so that'll go for 30 years, so we'll have enough money to replace them. So what we will need to do is add $20,000 to that annual allocation, so in 2047, we'll have enough money to replace the tennis courts again at McKee Farms Park, so.
Right, it's,
That's a savings account you're talking about. We're
Pretty much,
making
yeah.
yeah, and so,
contributions into a savings account to be spent some 25 years
2046
out.
and 2047, exactly. So we good with that one?
Okay.
6264? Is that
This
where
is
we're
the
at?
large park shelter, and again, this is 325, this is ARPA TID funding, so we raise it from 250, because we have been trying to do that for quite some time. If you look at the top, it was way back in 2017 that we began to start to talk about it, so with this one-time funding, with ARPA and TID, we were able to, the mayor was, able to put the 325 in for the Tower Hill Park shelter.
And is,
And then we also did increase to Mayor's point, the cost of the repair of the shelter went from 75 to 125 because we want to keep the dollars updated.
that's the McKee shelter you're talking about there.
That's the McKee shelter.
As far as the Tower Hill, is that, I kind of presume a complete demolition?
I'm thinking more like McGaw, what we did at McGaw, if you remember.
Okay. Well, I know that Tower Hill is the very oldest shelter that exists right now. It has a good feature of, it's got brick walls around it, but the thing is really horrible looking.
Well, hence the
So I didn't know
dollars
if it was going to be a complete demolition.
It might be
No,
leaning,
Which-
it might be leaning to the side or maybe the other side.
Yeah,
Leaning?
that's a joke, son.
Okay. If it is a complete demolition, then it would need a whole design,
Yeah,
which
no,
would need to
what-
go before us.
Yeah, and certainly when you redo it, you got to do ADA and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
those bathrooms are
yeah,
very
this isn't
small.
enough money to completely replace
No,
the
it's a-
shelter. It's
it's a-
just it's a fix-up.
Yep. So we good with
Then
that?
I'll just make a point of, we need to see how it's going to be fixed up. This needs to be run before us.
That's a big project, Patrick.
Okay.
We'll see
Park
it.
Commission will be involved.
Then there's a line on here, upgrade park shelters to solar shelters funded by TID 6. closure.
Yeah.
What is that about? Explain that.
That's a $50,000 allocation from the ARPA TID to, take a look at some of the shelters that we have within the park system and upgrade them to solar.
What does that mean, upgrade them to
Maybe
solar?
put solar panels in or
do-
whatever it might be.
To do what? I mean, are they generating electricity that goes into the grid?
I would say
MG&E
to-
grid?
I would say to go into the facility.
So you're going to run lights in the shelter off of the solar panels? In other words, when the daytime, when the sun is shining, the lights will run, and then when it gets dark, the lights go off.
No.
They're usually tied into the
No,
grid, and
energy gets stored.
well, it can either be battery
sorry.
stored or, yeah, it can be either battery stored or tied into the grid. So you get a credit when you're feeding into the grid, and then you pull back. So
I know
if
how
you're-
that's supposed to work. I'm wondering.
And that's usually less expensive than battery storage, so most likely that's what would happen. But it would be ultimately it would be saving because you wouldn't be, when you weren't using it, you'd be feeding the grid, feeding your piggy bank basically.
Yeah, it's just this line is very vague.
Okay.
I mean, I can see where gazebos, I would like to see some small solar panels on the gazebos with some little landscape lighting, low voltage, 12 volt or something, with a battery, a little 12 volt battery sitting there somewhere, and it would run a little landscaping light inside of a gazebo. That'd be a great way to put a little bit of light in those. As far as a large shelter, you're going to need a lot more lights and bigger batteries and a bigger
Well,
solar panel. So I don't know what this is about.
This is about, first of all, it was a council,
Concept,
it was really not something that was,
specific.
came from this body out, it came from the council to us.
Council telling us to do
This
this
is correct. I
somehow,
mean, and
some way.
there's solar initiatives, not just at park shelters, but
Yeah,
Well,
solar panels
all
everywhere.
kinds of ancillary buildings is the idea. And Heidi, did you have more you wanted to add?
No, I was just kind of reiterating what Chris said, that, the energy gets stored and you use it or save it. And I mean, in the long run, you do save money.
And it's a sustainability specialist will help us decide what to do and where to do it and those kinds of things. It like they said, it's just a general,
Okay.
they thought it's a good allocation of the TID funds to kind of become energy independent or whatever it might be on some of the park shelters.
Okay, so this at this point is a very vague $50,000 to do something along this line. I know how solar panels and batteries and UPS and lighting and everything works. I have some of that equipment. But this, I didn't know what the idea was or what the proposal was about.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be, when come 2024, there'll be more details
Okay.
that the park commission will approve and the finance will approve and the council will approve, hopefully.
Okay,
All right. Are we done on this page?
yep.
Okay.
New park developments, and again, this is, well, in 2023, we're working in Terra Vesa. Also, North Stoner Prairie, 2 shade structures at the splash pad. And then, as I mentioned before, in 2024, we've got Southdale Park, additional playground, which I think is fine. The Southdale Park additional shelter.
Wait, back up a line. That 60,000, what's the funding source on that?
You look down on the park, looks like park improvement fees.
Oh,
And that's,
There is
No,
no
what-
park.
But not for Southdale. Right, that's tax levy, right?
That's what I'm asking. It doesn't say.
Park.
Southdale has no park dedication money.
well, it looks like finance is okay with us using,
No, I think that Southdale has some park dedication fee for the one of the
from the
artisan village.
area there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we built that senior housing, you remember?
Oh, yes.
So there are some park dedication fee that belongs to that area. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there is some money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right in
That's
the neighborhood
nearby.
there. What is Artesian Village,
Yeah.
maybe?
Okay. And
So all of these,
And the next one as well, Southdale Park additional shelter with restrooms. I mean, it says 75, and then you wrote in 400,000, and it also doesn't say the funding of that. I was wondering if it was levy, and
no, they're all park improvement dedication fees.
there's enough money in there to pay 400,000 for a shelter? In Southdale? Okay. And you said, to my earlier question, that is considered an area park?
I would say an area park, right?
Do we have to officially, like, pick one of the criteria, one of the levels on this commission?
We should probably do that along the way.
Okay, all right.
And I think that typically probably would go through when we update the park master plan and those kinds of things, and we can officially classify it, similar to what we're going to do hopefully with the egg park. Once we finalize that, that'll be one of the pieces of the.
Now, this is listed for 2024, so unless we do something or whatever, I agree, Southdale Park, in general, overall, for whatever it has, is probably in poor condition because Town of Madison didn't do anything with anything for the last 20 years. If this stays in here as 2024, does this mean we are spending $400,000 for a brand-new shelter with restrooms in Southdale?
Do you remember when we were talking about Southdale Park prior?
Yeah.
What I'm suggesting, that the Southdale Park additional playground, which I suspect we're going to do some playground work in there, that 60's okay. But I'm thinking I would recommend to do Southdale Park additional amenities per park planning process, and then have the placeholder of 400,000 instead of specify shelter and restrooms.
Okay, but this is set right here in this schedule for 2024, and we're approving the 2024 CIP.
Right,
Now,
but I think
today.
Scott is saying we would, before we vote, we would amend a line item here to take away the specificity of a shelter with restrooms and say that it is a general fund with decisions being made
As the park
as
plan,
the park plan develops.
right?
Yeah, I'd be more comfortable with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting.
I'll make the point also here that, Southdale right now, it has an open shelter with lights only on it, and it is close to all of these apartments. I don't know what the neighbors think of this, but they've obviously, going on for decades. If they need a restroom, the apartments are very close within walking distance, I would kind of presume. So
Well, and I
if
think-
it's a difference of 75,000 for a shelter or 400,000 for a shelter with restrooms, you may want to consider the apartments are just a matter of feet away.
And again, I think through the park planning process, that'll all be determined what the neighbors are interested in. So that's why I suggest just to have a placeholder for $4,000 for Southdale Park improvements per the park planning process.
Okay, yeah, as long as it's a placeholder and not as soon as we vote the CIP that, $400,000 check is being written for a
Right, okay.
shelter.
Okay.
I want to make another point on 6266 right here. I don't know if anyone else has a comment, but I've seen throughout the CIP in various descriptions right here, like if you look at the 2027 line right there, McGaw Park / Fahey Fields, that's all I need to note right there. But then down below, previous funding authorized, 2020 pickleball courts. Well, it doesn't exactly say where they are, but we kind of know where they are. Below that, it says Fahey Fields. Down 3 lines below that, Fahey Fields. There is no Fahey Fields Park. At most, it is the western addition to McGaw Park. Then below there in 2022, McGaw pickleball court, water fountain. Well, I know where the water fountain is. It's right next to the pickleball. You've got to stop using Fahey Fields. It does not exist. The western addition of McGaw Park for the drinking fountain and the pickleball courts came out of the community park funds. If there was a Fahey Fields, it would not be a community park, and it would not be eligible for the high-level community park funds.
But as
gotta
this is
stop
all,
calling it
that's,
that.
all right, point taken. But this is all historical information, and just for the sake of time and the amount of pages
Well,
we have to
it's
go through.
confusing with, 3 different combinations of names.
I understand. Are there any other questions about,
Well, and we also have Terra Vesa Phase 1 in 2020.
I see.
Yeah, one more question on the bottom, not quite bottom, just above the word justification, it does say 2022 North Stoner Prairie Design, $20,000, but the discussion that we've been having on that, it's not really complete, so is this going to need more money to complete the design? Apparently 20,000 has been spent, but we haven't finalized that yet.
Right. So there will be some additional dollars probably, yeah.
Okay, does that need to be added like
No.
in a 2024 or something? Just be an increase in money in the fund?
No, because that one is, we don't know yet how much is
Got-
going to be the final invoice, so.
We got $23 up on top.
Okay, I'm just pointing out, it says 2022 North Shore Prairie Design 20,000. It's like it's finished, it's done. We supposedly voted while we didn't.
Well, okay, but I think it's just that money has been spent or soon will be finished, and we know we may need to spend more, but we don't know how much.
That's my question.
that's where we're at with-
Has this 20,000 been spent, or are they drawing from this and they're still working on it to earn the whole 20,000? Do you know?
Do you know?
I don't know specifically how much of
Okay.
the PO they've used, no.
All right, that's all I have anyway.
Okay. Are we on 6271, which is page 111 of 168?
This is a placeholder, I guess, for 2028.
Yeah.
Good there.
6273 is on page 113.
Yeah, and I really, I don't have information related to that. That's kind of at the council level and the planning department level. The Parks Department is kind of the placeholder for that. And that really is, because they didn't really know where to put it, so I think it's placed in the Parks Department CIP, but I know the council is continuing to work through the,
Mention it, we haven't even started with the phase one, it's
Oh,
2023.
right.
Because there are some technicality with some easement there in the parcel, so I think this phase two is gonna be moved like a couple of years, like 26, 27, or 28. And also the other thing that we are doing is the shelter that we are building in phase one is a big shelter that maybe we need to see how we can use that shelter. Maybe maybe in the future don't need to have the other, the other shelter, big, community center. So because the shelter that we are planning to build now in phase one is big, and we can do a lot of activity there too. So maybe we don't have that need in the future to build phase two. So this is what I see. This one is kind of like, it's gonna be moved because I think I'm gonna be making that decision. I'm gonna move it a couple of years, Is there a CIP for phase one? We already approved and it's under construction.
it's in the works.
But,
yeah.
It's on the work.
Do we have a page on that? We went from,
Well, that's
I don't know,
2020.
we went from 6271 to 6273, so I don't know if
It's-
there's a...
That's 2022 project,
That is
yeah.
a project that is not being approved by this committee. It's funded, approved by council, and it's under, we already have the final design. We were planning to break ground in April, but we have some technical issue with the storm water in the parcel that we're working with the developer, so.
But I mean, do we have a page that is like not in our packet right here for that?
That was a previous CIP, it was 2022.
Yeah, it's just retired as far as this committee
Yeah,
is concerned.
it's in the works, right?
Yeah.
It was in 2020. What is?
So we,
2022, so we started the year with 2023, so it's not part of 2023.
Yeah.
so I think that's good information, Julie, and actually, I misspoke, I was thinking it was the teen center, but the teen center is next, where that one is really at the council level.
Right.
Before we go on to, because I see it's not in these other things, I did ask earlier about the Belmar drinking fountain, but it's obviously not in these next couple of them. So where did you say that was?
I put an amendment to the ARPA fund and the ARPA investment plan, and I think we are funding that with that.
So that's ARPA, and
Yeah.
not in this,
I don't know where.
right?
Correct, it's,
Okay.
it was taken out,
All right, but it's in the ARPA one, which we don't see that, I guess.
that you approved.
Yeah,
You had a whole list of them.
When we discussed ARPA, yeah, which is not in this CIP list.
Right.
Okay. Kind of like to see pages that cover everything.
Okay,
Okay, and so,
6276. And actually, this one, I think this one was added back, I think, wasn't it?
no,
To the ARPA TID? I think this was added back to the ARPA TID list when you guys amended it.
But we allocate only a percentage. But the other thing that you keep in mind is $750,000 is not going to be enough. So this park is going to cost more than $1 million.
Wait, what are we on?
The kids crossing.
okay.
Oh, no, I'm
Oh,
on,
that's the next page.
yeah, I'm
Oh,
on
where we are?
62
Gravel bed.
6276, page
Okay.
119.
Yes.
All
Where
right,
is that? Oh, yeah, we put it back.
Yep, that was ARPA TID, yeah.
Yeah, with teeth closure.
Although we happen to have it in a
Yeah, no,
CIP page right here.
okay.
Which is-
So we're talking about the community tree gravel beds for
Yeah.
2025, 6276.
And that was actually placed in the ARPA TID project.
Right.
So it got moved up a little bit.
So what do we do, tear this page up?
Well,
Because it's not a
Well,
CIP
and
anymore?
you know what, I think I think we're kind of in transition between the two.
Okay, all right.
But I think that's the way it's gonna end up
All right,
going.
I just like that, better that there is a page rather than not a page. But it's, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. All right, next.
And then 6277, Kids Crossing Playground. I think that one may have been, gosh, was that one moved up? That may have been moved up in ARPA TID too.
Move
Is I-
up?
Well, I think what we did is
We are going to use some of the teeth closure to fund part of this. But the idea is that you remember that we discussed in the inclusive program meeting that the $750,000 is not going to be enough because this amount has been coming. It has been in the CIP for I don't know since I have been here in council. So I think we need to revise this amount because it's no, and then it's going to be also we want to look for donations, like if we can fund part of this part with donations, grants. And the idea is if we need to determine what type of park we want to do, replace the kid crossing if we are going to make that part more inclusive, because it's not an inclusive playground right now. And if we want to add more or we want to increase the size, maybe we can use park dedication fee. So that one could be another source of funding.
And really, a conversation that I want to continue to have is to create a Friends of Fitchburg Parks, if you would, a 501c3 that would be a group that would actually be the ones that would be in charge of reaching out and getting this funding. We, as staff and alders and council members aren't allowed to go out and do that specific fundraising, but I think it really is getting to the time where we should try and create that Friends of Fitchburg Park 501c3 that can be that fundraising arm for the city. And I think this would be a great kind of pilot project for them to do that. And the allocation from the city is $375, and actually what they did is I think they switched the funding source from Parkland dedication to ARPA TID. So that's kind of don't quote me on that, but
well, that's what it just says here,
possible.
TID closure excess increment.
so
It
yeah.
says that on there, and the
Well,
other is
that is
the
correct. And
grants.
originally it was Parkland dedication
Right.
or something else.
Now, is that still 2026, or is that moved?
That
That's still staying in 2026.
Yeah, that may, right.
For right
but-
now,
For right now,
today.
but I'm thinking if we can get legs on the Friends of Fitchburg Parks, I think this would really be a good project. And in all truthfulness, we're beginning to take stuff out of it just because it's wood and there's
It's deteriorating,
screws
unsafe.
coming out of it, and it just, there's nothing to screw into anymore, kind of thing, so.
Some point that I want to make on this, I have not looked at it really closely. I've walked by it, I haven't walked into it. I did see back on page 99 is the projects by department, the whole big grand total of everything, I guess. And I was seeing that 2026 is a quite high year of expenditures. 2025 is a really super high number for expenditures, over 7 million. 2026 is close to 2 million. It kind of looks like 27, 28 or so, something a little farther out would be a better year, possibly, but I'm not clear on the ARPA funding and how that works, and if this has changed or whatever, so I just want to make that point.
Yeah.
So what I want to mention about that, there is this big project for the hub phase 2, that project for sure is going to be moved up, so for sure.
From 2025 to forward?
Out further into the future.
Oh, out. Oh, okay, so the 7 million will decrease and be shifted to a later year, or some part of the 7 million, okay.
That
Evens it out a little more over.
can be
Yeah,
a merit.
that was quite a
Next
spike there.
years.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if I think that's the last one. Can I recap the amendments, if you would? In 62, 63, for Chicory Meadow, the tennis courts, we're going to include funding half, 80,000, and then the other 80 for donations. In 62, 66, which is the, I think that's the is that general improvements? That's where the Southdale one is? No, that's, what did I say, 62, 66? For new developments, I'm going to change the text for the Southdale Park addition to make it more general per the park planning process. And those are the only two that I have.
That's what I recall. Those two items are how we are, when we vote, that's our approval. Fair enough? Any further comments? Those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Our motion passes.
Excellent. The next item is, you're familiar with the Dolly Bike Hub, and actually I believe it's next to it. I don't know exactly what direction it is. There is a Dane County bike facility. And what they're proposing, and actually, I think this picture does a better job of it.
That-
You can see where the Dowley Bike Hub is.
And that's on page 122 of the packet.
122, yeah, I think that's a better illustration of the area that we're talking about. You can see the hub, and then actually this yellow line is the property line. So the city of Fitchburg's over here and Dane County's over here, and they actually have a trail system over here. What they want to do is they want to expand that trail system to come into Dowley Park area. And in doing so, what they're going to have to do is create a couple bridges. And actually what we've done is we've talked, because this is a stormwater ditch, if you would. We've talked to the stormwater folks, and they're fine with these crossings. So what I'm really trying to do is get a sense from the Park Commission on how you feel about this. And I did include in your packet, there was a memorandum of understanding that we have with Corp. So it's the same, or the capital L for, yeah, the capital Off-Road Pathfinders. It's the same group that helps us in Corey Ridge. They're the ones who manage this parcel, and they're the ones that are going to make the additions and then manage the parcel adjacent to Dowley. So another piece of this approval would be the Common Council would need to update this memorandum of understandings with the Capital Off-Road Pathfinders to include this parcel. And I'm hoping and this is what, and the big thing that the stormwater folks wanted to do is the abutments they've got to be higher than the natural flow of the water, so they actually have to be elevated a little bit. So it's outside of the flow of the potential water that comes underneath. So they'll have to build them up a little bit. But
So
they'll
they'll
just
look-
be in the two different locations right here and then right here.
So they'll just look a little bit more elevated than they're shown in that.
Yes.
Rendering.
Yes. So they'll have to be elevated, and then they'll have to do a little earthwork to get up to them.
Sure.
To make sure that they stay out of the flow of the cut of the drainage way.
And none of this is
Or it'll float away.
plowed or,
No.
it's
no, this
just
is-
all left, it's when conditions allow.
Yep,
it's
this is
used.
off-road.
Yeah.
It's all off-road stuff, and you can kind of see now, this is looking, you see where Seminole Hill is, and then Dowley, and then you go, and I think what direction is that? Yeah, that must be
That's,
west.
it is sort of west, almost, maybe it's
Yeah,
almost
north
too
is
west.
down, but here is the Capital City Trail that runs along the marsh, and then this is actually the Dane County property right here, which is a blue trail, and what they're trying to do is add this green trail. Well, they actually laid out nice here. Well, it's kind of opposite, actually.
Sue?
Oh, I'm sorry, Julia, please.
Yes, I have a couple of questions, Scott. So this memorandum is going to be updated because this is a 2012 memorandum, and I think my question is, who is going to maintain this in our area? Because this is because I want to understand how we're going to divide the cost, the maintenance.
Yep.
It's going to be another
Well,
park or trail that we need to maintain.
No.
So I want to understand that.
Yep, that's part of the memorandum of understanding that we have with the Capital Off-Road Pathfinders. They're the ones that, Fitchburg Parks, we do a couple things, but they basically inspect, maintain, check the signs. They do all the work out there, Julia. And then actually, if you remember with the operating budget, we allocate $2,500 a year in our operating budget that goes to that group to maintain the facility that we have. So we work in partnership with them. They do all the work.
And then you said all of this, you're going to be updating.
Well, we have to,
You have to,
in order
because this is just
to
the-
add this piece to the
Right.
agreement, we'll add
Sue?
that.
Okay, go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, I know this memorandum here is an old one from past mayor and everything from 2012. But my question here is, the memorandum here was with WARBA, the Wisconsin Off-Road Bike Association, that has always taken care of the Quarry Ridge Park and the bike trails in there. Now, is Corp Capital Off-Road Pathfinder, is that a new name for WARBA or a different group or what?
See, and that's what we're gonna have to do, is we're gonna have to update everything to make sure that it's accurate.
Because don't we have an ongoing agreement with WARBA for Quarry Ridge?
See, I no, I think that's, that's a good question.
Well, that's the
I'll have
memo
to-
right here from 2012, is WARBA, Wisconsin Off-Road Bike Association, and this was, I remember this has been approved several years, recurring.
Well-
This was for Quarry Ridge, this is a different park, Dawley, and this is Corp.
It's the
So
same.
I don't know if we got two different groups for two different parks, or what?
No, it's the same group, and they may have changed names and all
Okay,
those kinds.
that's-
So we'll get through and make sure
Okay.
that we got all the correct.
That's-
And actually, the people are different at the bottom, and it's just time to update it.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking, is if it's the same group and they just renamed themselves or what?
Yep.
So has to be revised for, because it's not updated,
Well,
and also I agree with Patty because it says in the second page, in the second, it said, inspect and maintain bike trail at Quarry Ridge Recreation Area, and this is not Quarry Ridge.
So what I would do is inspect it and maintain bike trails at Quarry Ridge Recreational Area and Dowley and Seminole Glen.
Yeah,
We would add,
It is the same group.
it's the same group.
yeah.
Parks.
We would just add this site to this agreement
Right,
and get
and-
it all up to, and that'll be something that the council is going to have to
Yeah,
approve.
and change the name of the group if that's the case.
Whatever, and the different names and those things.
I have another question. This say here that the Fitchburg Parks Department shall maintain trailheads and related park facility. What are the trailheads?
Well, that's at the beginning of the trail. And we really, in all honesty, we don't do much out
Okay.
there. And what they'll do is they'll call us on occasion if there's a big limb or a tree or something. So they really do a lot of the maintenance on their own, so. But I just want to make sure you guys were good with this, and then I'll continue, and proceed and get the approvals and all that good stuff.
So do you want a motion?
Please, yep.
All right.
Yep.
I will move to approve this updated agreement with the expansion of the trails. Our understanding of that process is Scott is working with staff and the group itself, Corp, and the council, so that the documents are correct.
Yeah, it'll come back.
Okay.
You'll see it again.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes.
Very good.
And so we are on to our communications.
Tree
Scott?
City USA, yep, and actually, there'll be a proclamation that'll be read later this month. I wasn't able to attach the Park and Open Space, oh, wait a second here. The Park Rec and Forestry Annual Report. So I did send a link to you that had that report. I did want to include the Stoner Prairie Park Master Plan Statement of Support that we did receive to make sure that, I know I did forward it to you, but this is just confirmation that the Park Commission received it along with the names and those things.
What page is that?
What's that?
We have this petition, but that's not a statement of support.
Statement of support it is.
Petition?
Yeah, page 132, it says, it's got entitled its statement of support. It's in support of a position. It's not meant to mean support for anything else but what they have written there.
Yeah, I just wanted to let them know that the Park Commission has seen it. We read it, you've a copy of it, so it's just,
It's a statement of their support from this group, not the park
Correct,
department,
Yeah, this
park
is just
commission, anything.
what they provided us.
yeah.
Terra Vista Egg Park, I think the open house or the public meeting went well. And I know what EOR and Rooted, they're going to be working on a final concept and come to the Park Commission, and then we'll work through that. So I did include the PowerPoint, and I think I may have sent the link out from FAC too on the presentation, so,
Yes, you did. That's appreciated.
that's great, that's very cool. And then we're down to staff reports.
Question?
Go ahead, got a question?
Just some things on Jordan's report for the parks crew. Painting, rebuilding the signs, that's still ongoing? It's on here every month.
Looks like it.
Okay. Install the dog park drinking fountain. Is there a date
Well,
when that's going to get installed?
it's sooner rather than later.
Well, yeah, again, I mean, it's supposed to be last year, so.
I did say it was gonna be.
Oh, yeah,
this year. I
yeah,
said
that
it
was
gonna
that
be
binding
spring.
agreement, remember?
First thing in the spring.
Uh-huh. Okay, so really soon in the, spring here in.
Well, and we've got a contractor on board, so understand it. I didn't say what
Soon.
year.
Soon.
Soon. No, it'll
Okay.
be soon.
You replace equipment. The point on new playground at Clayton Park, I was just curious, is that actually a replacement or is that brand-new equipment? I don't know if there's something there or not. And Jordan just has it here as new playground at Clayton Park, so it kind of sounds like brand new.
Yep, that's what we just.
Right, yeah,
approved.
But there's an existing playground
There
there.
is, yeah.
Okay.
So it's a replacement.
Yeah,
But the
that's-
replacement will be new.
Yeah, okay. And just a note, Joran does have down here, well, this is last month's report, but he has begun to open shelters. I'll just note, better here, as well as anything, in April of this week, actually, the pickleball courts have been unlocked. Everybody can show up, start playing. That was unlocked on Monday. I think I saw that the McGaw shelter is open now, so I presume all the shelters are open? No,
I
not yet?
wouldn't presume that. I think they're working on them.
Okay, McGaw's open.
Yep. We got an event there actually Saturday, so.
Yeah, that's the Easter
Cotton.
something,
Call it
yeah.
classic.
That, a run, walk event?
You're correct.
Okay. Okay.
Future agenda items, are we good with the reports? I think we're gonna have a park and open space,
Status of the Parks and Recreation Plan.
yep, that's future park and open space plan update is gonna be in May. And actually, we're working on a couple other donation projects that I'll kind of bring in front of the Park Commission in May. We got a donation for some fitness equipment, and then also there's another facility where a gentleman passed away and his wife is doing some donations to create a bit of a bike station. So I'll bring some details next month with that. And maybe what I might even do is maybe ship that off to you in between so you kind of see what we're working on.
Okay. The next two meetings, May 4th and June 1st.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so this one is my last meeting with you guys. And I really enjoy working with you. I love parks, and I wish I can stay here working with you. And then I'm gonna appoint another elder here in this position. But I want to say thank you for your service in this committee, for your passion about parks, and I'm gonna miss you.
Thank you.
May we comment back?
Can you remember us well, right? In your payroll budget.
And
It's been.
in
it's
case
been a
anybody
trip.
missed it, we can still find Julia shortly in an office
Well,
in the
actually,
building.
pretty soon she'll be sitting in that chair.
Right, exactly. And so
Thank you, Julia.
congratulations to you, and thank you for your
Yeah.
support of this committee.
The parks, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, motion to adjourn, I said that, but we didn't, yeah, I'll move to adjourn, a second? Second. Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It is 7:59 and 40 seconds.